We're going to create an artwork today that plays with space. One definition of space in a work of art is the literal area that you have to work with, the square inches of paper or canvas that you are painting or drawing on. Another definition of space is the illusion that there's depth in an artwork, that there's a foreground and there are other things way, way back in the background. So we're going to create an artwork that divides the surface into shapes that are touching. Welcome to part 1 of our geometric shape artwork. For this activity, we're going to need a piece of paper, we're going to need a pencil, I'm going to bring an eraser just in case, and we're going to need a ruler to draw straight lines. Let's start with our first line. Now, since my ruler is only long enough to reach across the paper this way, then that's how my first line is going to have to be. It's going to have to be vertical, going from top to bottom. That's vertical. So I've got some choices. I could make one big shape and a little one. I could make them close to the same size. That's kind of boring, so try your best to make the shapes different from each other. So they don't have to be strangely different. One doesn't have to be tiny and the other one huge, but they should be at least a little bit different so they're not exactly the same. That's less interesting. All right, so my first vertical line is going to go right here. And now my one piece of paper is 2 shapes. So we're going to continue to divide these shapes until we have a total of 10. And we're going to do that only with horizontal and vertical lines. So this is a vertical line. It goes from top to bottom. A line that goes from left to right is horizontal. The only kind of line that's not going to be allowed is diagonal lines. None of those. Everything is horizontal and vertical in this artwork. So my job is now to divide these 2 shapes into smaller shapes. So how about right here? So make sure that you do not cross any lines and that you continue all the way to the edge of the paper. So when I hit the edge of the paper, that's the end of my line. When I hit another line, that's the end of my line. So that's how we're going to keep the shapes from being too similar. It'll help to keep them different. So now I have 1, 2, 3 shapes. So let's continue until we have 10. Remember, horizontal and vertical lines only. Do not cross over any lines, and make sure that your lines keep going until they hit the edge of the paper, and when they hit another line, you have to stop. And now that I have 10 shapes, I'm going to stop. If you accidentally have 11 or 12 shapes, it's no big deal. You could erase some lines and get back to 10, or you could just keep the 12. It'll be okay. One of the fun things about this activity is that no matter how many times you do it, it's probably going to be different every time. The horizontal rectangles will be in different places. The vertical rectangles will be spread out differently. You might even have some squares in there that popped in while you're making your shapes. So that's one of the fun things about this activity is even though the steps are simple, there are millions and millions of different ways that it could turn out. And when we continue in part 2, adding colors and designs in the shapes, it even opens up more possibilities for different artworks in the end. So this is the end of part 1. We have 10 geometric shapes that fill the entire space of the artwork. Next week, we'll do part 2, and we'll start adding colors and designs in each of the spaces. See you next week. Bye.